You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 89. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from Educalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Hello there and welcome. We're so happy to have you here today. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that comes up quite a lot when we're talking about social emotional learning in the classroom, and that is, how do I find time? We have so much on our plates as teachers. We have so many academic things to cover. We know that social emotional learning is important, but how do we find the time for it? So we're going to talk about that today, but first we want to share our sponsor with you. You guys have heard us talk about them a lot on the show because we love them. It's Free Label, the conscious clothing brand that Josiane and I live in.
Actually live in.
We have so many of their pieces and we keep coming back because they stand the test of time. They are made by happy hands in Canadian factories, and it is just a brand that we love to support. We think you'll love them too. You'll be able to wear their clothes at home when you're lounging around on the couch or when you're teaching in the classroom. They're very versatile. Check out their beautiful upcoming winter line by going to educalm.com/free label. Again, that's educalm.com, educalme.com/free label. All right, let's get into today's show. So, Josiane, we know how important social emotional learning is in the classroom.
Yes, number one to us.
Yes, and the reason that we discovered this is really just through noticing in our own classrooms that these social emotional, I want to say fires would always pop up. You know, the students come into the classroom and they're telling you about something that went on. And in your mind, you're like, I want to deal with this, but I don't have time for this. Yes. We have to move forward. We have to get things done.
I have report cards. I have evaluations to do. There's no time.
Yes. But what we've discovered is that when we make social emotional learning a part of the daily routine, all of a sudden, we're putting out a lot less fires. Students are learning to manage their own emotions. They're learning to work together as a community in the classroom to support each other when they're going through difficult things. They're gaining all sorts of skills for how to support themselves in difficult times. And that means that we are having to do less of the hands-on support and they become more independent.
Yeah, like for me, I feel like I realized at one point within less than a year of teaching that the fires were not going to put themselves out. And if I didn't teach them the strategies, I would never properly get to academics, right?
Yes.
And then I was like, hey, I think my thinking is backwards. It can't be academics first. They need the tools to be able to handle these things so that we can move on to academics and get those evaluations done and get those report cards done, right?
Yes, exactly. And the image that always comes to mind for me whenever I'm thinking of social emotional learning first is that it's kind of like a slingshot. And yes, you're pulling back away from the academics for a minute, but the more you pull back and take time for that social emotional learning piece, the more you have this like momentum to move forward in academics. We've all had that moment.
Great visual, Kaylee.
We've all had that time when, and I'm for sure guilty of doing this a lot, in the beginning until I figured this out over trial and error, was that, you know, my students would come to me with something on their mind and they'd be upset about a problem that happened, or, you know, there was something going on, and I would always say, okay, well, first we have to do the academics and then I'll help you with your problem later. Then I would start teaching my lesson and I could see the glazed over look in their eye. I could see that, okay, I'm trying to teach them something, but they're not there.
They're not ready for that.
No, their brain literally is not ready for learning. Now, I've been sharing this example a lot in the last few workshops that we've done, is that when the brain is in a stress response or worry or anxiety, it physically is not ready to learn. It isn't. It can't. So when we're feeling stressed, even if it's for something little, like a student that comes into our classroom, or little in our eyes, they come into our classroom.
Big in theirs.
Exactly. And say, for example, their, parents made them wear the pink sweater, but they wanted to wear their green sweater today. That seems like a little issue for us, but for them, it's big, and it pushes them into the stress response in their body. Now, the way that our stress response is developed, the way that we've evolved, is that when there's an immediate danger, our body puts all of its resources into protecting ourselves in this moment. Means it forgets about all the long-term things and just wants to save us in this second so that we can live till tomorrow. So if you can imagine back in the day, a lion is coming at you, your body isn't like, oh, I should probably digest my food to make sure that I have energy for tomorrow. No, it stops sending any of its energy to your digestive system. And instead, it redirects all that energy to your muscles so that you're ready to fight or flee. And so that your muscles have all the nutrients it needs and the glucose it needs, the energy it needs right now to protect yourself in the short term. Now, another thing that's really interesting when we're in the stress response is that we actually lose our physical peripheral vision. So we need to be able to focus on that danger really well and notice all the little details of that immediate danger, like the lion. So our eyeballs stop seeing what's around us and only focuses on the main problem. So that just shows how our brain is redirecting itself to only pay attention to the issue at hand. Now, when we're in this fight and flight state, again, our mind is just thinking about the problem and how can we get through this moment to survive. So when our students are coming into our classroom and they're in the stress response, we might have no idea how they've gotten there, why they're there. But a lot of them, especially with a busy morning, most families are rushing in the morning and your students are coming into the classroom in this busy,
frazzled
state.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to get right into the academics and teach right away, their brain physically isn't able to learn because it is focused on the problem and trying to solve that problem in their mind. So
it's not efficient of us as teachers to start teaching.
Exactly. It's like speaking to a wall.
Yeah. Which often we feel like we're doing as teachers, don't we?
Exactly. So if we can start our day or our time with our students by managing those big emotions, managing that stress, and guiding them back into a state of rest and relaxation, then now their body is concerned about long-term safety. So that means it starts digesting its food, it starts sending energy to the brain instead of just the muscles. So it's giving the brain more power to learn new things. Remember, when we're teaching our students new things, they're physically changing their brain structure. So that takes a lot of energy. Learning new things takes a ton of brain energy. So we need to allow our students' bodies to be in a state where they're giving all their energy to the brain. And when they're calm, they can think of the big picture. They stop being so focused on whatever problem they have, and they're thinking long term. Their brain is in a state where it's ready to learn new things and create new memories. So the social emotional learning piece, when we are committing to doing it every day, we are, like I said, pulling that slingshot back. It takes a little bit of time, yes, but the learning is happening so much faster.
Yes, and like that, we both have seen that in our classrooms. I stopped spending 15 minutes after the 15-minute recess to have to help the students deal with whatever happened during recess. That was no longer an issue anymore. I was able to dive right into academics.
Yes. When you're teaching them skills like through a mindfulness practice, for example, using Educalm Classroom, and you're doing this every day, not only are they learning how to get into a calm state faster, they're learning how to recognize when they're ready to learn, and they're learning strategies that they can use whenever they recognize that they're not in a state where they're ready to learn, that they can implement at any time during the day to get themselves back to feeling calm and focused on the present moment and what they're learning or practicing in the present moment.
Now, I think something important to mention too is that kids don't come with these strategies naturally.
No.
They don't just come to school and they've got all these strategies. These have to be taught day in, day out, repetitively every single day.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we cannot expect them to use any strategy.
Yes. So social emotional learning, and mindfulness, they're skills that have to be learned. It's like teaching a kid to read. You have to practice every day for them to develop those skills until they get to the point that they can use it on their own. Now, the beautiful thing is once you can get them to the point where they've learned it and developed those skills and they can use it on their own, you're putting out so many less fires during the day. And that time that you put into social emotional learning and mindfulness, you're getting that time back and more.
And it's done in a more productive way because they're learning it when they are already in a calm state, not when they are in a heightened state.
Yes, which is so important because like we just explained, when anyone's body is in a fight and flight state, and if they're feeling stressed or anxious or worried,
not going to learn a new strategy.
Yeah. No matter
or skill.
Exactly. No matter what we're trying to teach them, even if it's a calm down strategy, a breathing strategy, they're not receptive to learn. So we have to teach it to them when they're already calm in a structured way, a systematic way where they're learning it every day, so that when they are in a state where they need our help to calm down, well, we have already taught them skills that they can tap into. They already know how to use the skills. They're not learning it for the first time, so they can use it more effectively. So, if you're having if a student comes into your classroom, they're having a meltdown and it's the very first time you ever say to them, okay, take 5 deep breaths. They don't even know how to breathe deeply to a point that it's effectively calming them down. They understand, okay, breathe, but they don't understand what calm breathing that calms your body feels like.
And therefore, they won't be able to do it.
Exactly. So you're struggling to put out these fires in the moment rather than doing the pre-teaching that allows you to, put out the fires a lot more easily and quickly in the future. Now, we have so many teachers using Educalm Classroom that are telling us that this very thing, that they're feeling that ever since they started Educalm Classroom, they get so much more done in their classroom, that there's so much more academic learning happening because students are ready to learn and they've learned these skills where they're better able to refocus when they do get off task.
And they're retaining more of what they're learning.
Exactly. So then everything we do in the classroom becomes more effective and we can move farther, faster. So something to consider for yourself in your own classroom is, how can you make this a daily practice? How can social emotional learning be something that you do regularly so that it's part of the routine? And a lot of teachers feel like it's hard to find that time. So you kind of just have to recognize when your brain is telling you, no, I don't have time for this, and say, I don't have time to not do this.
So true, though.
Yeah, it is. And then you have to kind of commit to it until you start realizing that, okay, this is making a change and it's so worth it. We just hear so many stories of how this is helping gain back time in the classroom by doing Educalm Classroom every day.
And sometimes it is teachers that say they don't have time and then they decide, okay, I'll take a chance on this program. And then all of a sudden they email us saying, like, I have way more time now. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. We hear the word magic, amazing, I can't believe my eyes. Those are all things that we often hear from feedback from teachers that are using our program. So, so something to consider as you're overcoming the hurdle of how do I fit this into my school day. Give yourself 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. You're going to gain that 5 minutes back.
And you don't need more than 5 minutes. Really, what's most important is that it's every day.
Exactly.
It's consistent. You don't dip the minute that it's evaluation time, or you stop doing it when you're in the middle of report cards. You have to keep at it every single day, 5 minutes a day.
Exactly. So the best time to do this is really when your students are first coming to see you. So in an elementary classroom, when you have them all day, maybe it's first thing in the morning, but we have lots of teachers that actually do their Educalm practice several times throughout the day because they find that it gains them back so much time. So they'll do a practice after, in the morning, and then again at recess, and then again, or after recess, then again, at the end of the day before they're getting ready for the end of the day, because it's giving them time and control back in the classroom. Now, I find especially high school teachers and middle school teachers have the biggest mind hurdle to overcome when they're thinking of how do I do this in my classroom? Because I think high school and middle school teachers they tend to be specialists. So they only are seeing their students they're not seeing them all day. They're seeing them for 1 block or 2 blocks.
And I think there's just more like academic pressure on teachers.
Yeah, exactly.
And students.
Exactly. So, I've had teachers say like, okay, so if I do this 5 minutes a day, then, how many minutes am I using or wasting by the end of the week? And okay, whoa, we have to reframe that. These aren't minutes wasted. These are minutes gained. Every 5 minutes you put into your daily mindfulness practice, you're getting that back because students are more focused. Their brain is ready to learn. They're learning skills that support them in their learning. They're recognizing when their body is feeling overwhelmed or anxious and using the strategies before tests, before challenging learning situations that are allowing them to perform at their best.
And this is something that our ambassadors have told us over and over and over again, that in the long term, they gain so much more time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who would have thought 5 minutes a day will gain you like so many minutes?
Yeah. Exactly. Actually, that makes me think there's this one teacher that shared their experience directly related to this time piece. So I want to share that story. So they said, Educalm helps my students prepare their brain for learning. After our Educalm classroom mindfulness, my students are more focused. They're able to pay attention to instruction better and able to get more work done. This means we're doing so much learning in a day and getting through so much more content than in previous years before I started using Educalm Classroom.
Party.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've been struggling with thinking, I want to do social emotional learning in my classroom on a regular basis, I want to share mindfulness, but how am I going to find the time? Hopefully this helped you to look at it in a new way and ask yourself, how do I not have the time to prepare my students' brains for learning? So if you'd like to start a classroom mindfulness practice, we have a full year classroom mindfulness program called Educalm Classroom, where you have a lesson for every single day for the whole school year. And you can start it out for free by going to educalm.com and click on free trial. Now, in that free trial, you're going to get training on how to use the program. So you go into it knowing exactly what to do, and you're going to get the first unit of our full year program called Introduction to Mindfulness for free. So you can try it out in your classroom. That's going to last you at least a month worth of content, but you never lose access to it. So you can continue using it for as long as you want. You'll always have access to it. So again, go to educalm.com. That's spelled educalme.com and click on free trial to get started.
Awesome.
Hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks for sharing this time with us.
See you next week.